I'm one of the co-founders of TamilCulture.com, along with my other co-founder, Era Ingham. And on behalf of our entire team, I'd like to thank you for being here. Over the next 2 hours, you're going to be hearing the inspiring stories of some great individuals who are making amazing things happen. And so we're excited to share that with you at the first event of its kind for us, called Global Tamil Connections. And I would like to start off by recognizing our event sponsor, Green Frog Construction, and their CEO, Manoj Subendran. Without him, this event would not have been possible. When we approached him and mentioned that we would like to run a business event that emphasizes community building and collaboration, he did not hesitate to extend a hand, so we're really thankful. Manoj is quite an impressive individual. He's somebody that you would definitely call a hustler. He literally cold called multiple potential clients for months, got no reply, and eventually managed to get a lead that led him to really jumpstart Green Frog and eventually land great clients like Scotiabank and Marriott, and he'll be sharing his journey with us shortly. And in addition to that, I would like to thank our event sponsors, event partners, Tamil Women Rising. Manjula and her team have been really great with helping this come through. And also Tamil Entrepreneurs Organization. So we have Noel and a few other individuals from that organization here, and both of them will share their story later on. And before I complete my part of this, I would like to just reiterate that, as you can see with this event, it's a partnership among a lot of organizations, and that exemplifies what TC stands for. As a platform, our goal is to connect the global talent community through storytelling, and this is something that we're doing through some of the new features that we've added on our site, where there's a networking portion that allows businesses and entrepreneurs to create a profile and connect with one another, so we hope you take advantage of that. There are over 70 million Tamils worldwide, and if we find a way to effectively collaborate and work together, it provides so many business opportunities and really allows for us to build a strong and prosperous community. So these types of events really are a sign of that. And with that, I would like to pass the mic to Kalivani from Green Frog Construction to kick things off. Thank you.
So hello everyone, it's so nice to see all of you here today coming together to this event that TamilCulture has put together for us. So my name is Kalivani, as she said, and I'm the representative for Green Frog Construction. We're driven by our vision to become Canada's leading construction company and our enthusiasm for doing it right. We have grown our clientele through showcasing integrity and shared discipline. At Green Frog, our team works alongside industry experts to bring your vision to life through a design-build process. We specialize in building restaurants and commercial construction. With our unprecedented attention to detail and astonishing craftsmanship, you can rest assured that the project will be completed on schedule and with unparalleled service. That is a Green Frog assurance. Moving on, I'd like to introduce you to our keynote speaker for tonight, Nelson Seville, who is visiting from the UK. He is the CEO and founder of How Now, which is an edtech company, and he is also a filmmaker. He was recognized by Virgin Media Business as one of the top 30 young innovative founders in the UK, as well as one of the top Asian stars in tech by KPMG. So without further delay, I'm going to pass it on to him.
Hello. Hi. How you guys doing today? Everyone well? Good. So, like I said, my name is Nelson, and before anyone else says it, it is like Nelson Mandela, and I was named after Nelson Mandela. Now that we've got that out of the way, I can move on to the next bit. I really do hope the next few minutes are going to be useful for you guys. If it isn't, I'm afraid you're not going to get a refund. At the very least, I hope you're entertained by my accent till the very end. On that note, let me tell you something that's really important. So, I'm a big believer of being at the right place at the right time. And by that, I don't mean being lucky, I mean getting up off your arse and turning up at the right place at the right time. And that turning up is the hustle. that turning up at the right place, right time, not knowing it's going to be the right place, right time, is what the hustle is about, and that's not luck. So I want you guys to firstly give yourselves and TC a big round of applause for turning up and making tonight happen. Cool. So when I was thinking about what to talk about today, I thought, you know what, the main thing that holds us back from kind of realizing our full potential is our mindset. And, you know, I'm about a week and a half away from turning 30. I know what you're thinking. Time has been tough on him, and he looks a lot older. I know, that's what being an entrepreneur does to you. Now, and I've spent most part of the last decade running businesses and being an entrepreneur. And the nature of my job meant I've got the chance to meet so many amazing entrepreneurs, investors, successful, not so successful. And now I'm an investor myself, and also support one of the funds that backed us. We look at the deals that come through. So a conversation we have a lot these days is, what are the traits and characteristics of an entrepreneur that we've seen succeed, an entrepreneur. And so I wanted to talk a bit about what are these characteristics that define the entrepreneurial mindset based on the people I've met and what I've done over the last decade. So one of the first characteristics we notice in an entrepreneur's mindset is the ability to critically review anything they come across. And by that, what I mean is, on a day-to-day basis, you spot pain points, and you don't just stop there, but you turn these pain points into opportunities. So if you think about it, you can really split this into two types of people. People who, when they see a problem, they'll think of a solution. Then the other type of person is, when they see a solution, they'll always come up with a problem. They're the people who you will always find complaining. Even when you give them what they wanted, they're still complaining. But then the other type of person is someone who's constantly coming up with ideas, because you're constantly experiencing these pain points. And that's an integral part of an entrepreneur. But the other side of that same coin is you appreciate that ideas are overestimated, right? Because we give too much importance to ideas, and so we get attached to these ideas. So when we know it's not working, we take it personal to say that actually this idea is not working anymore. What will people say? What will my friends say? What will my family say? I've been saying I've been working on this idea, and now I have to move on. So when we're looking at, say, for example, an investment opportunity, we typically find someone who's really, really passionate about the idea or the pain point and the opportunity, but also has the rationality to be able to know, okay, this could change. And you typically find this when, I like to say this anecdote of, I was speaking at Google once, and this guy came up to me and he said, you know, I'd really like help with this business idea. I said, great, what's your idea? And he said, well, I can't really tell you. I was like, okay, so what industry is the business in? He goes, well, I can't really tell you. I was like, well, mate, who are your competitors? He's like, well, I can't, what am I supposed to help with here? And that, to me, shows someone who overvalues the idea and lacks the experience to know that there's so much execution involved here, that if you're really worried about telling a friend or someone random an idea and you think they're going to go do it better than you, then you really don't know what it's going to take to make this happen. So it's having that balance of, yeah, be passionate about your idea, but you're more passionate about what you're going to achieve and not the way in which you're going to do it. So when you need to let go, you will. Now this, starting with the idea, the second trait that I don't think it doesn't get spoken about enough is the ability to tell a story. Now, story essentially comes from the fact that you're going to be a salesman, right? Think of all the different stakeholders in your business, from your investors, to your employees, to your customers, even your parents. If you're going to tell them that you're going to quit a job and you're going to start a business, you have to tell them a story of where this is going to go. So the essential part of this is how you tell that story. And this is a skill that we find that even entrepreneurs that have an incredible product, maybe they raise their kind of initial seed capital, they struggle to raise further capital because they might have it all there, but they can't sell that story to someone else. And I'll give you an example. How many of you guys in this room have ever shared expertise or given someone advice? Put your hand. Right. It's quite a lot of the room. I'd say like 90%. So what we do at How Now is we give you the tools to make money from that expertise and that knowledge. That's my hook when I'm telling the story. Right? You tell a story like that, 90% of the room put their hand up and I say I'm going to help 90% of this room make money. And I've not told you anything about my technology, I've not told you anything about my feature set, nothing. But now you want to know how I'm going to help you make money, or how 90% of this room is going to make money because of what we do at How Now. And it's that ability to get someone in and take, because when you're starting out, you have nothing. You have an idea, maybe a prototype, an MVP, but it's a strange scenario with institutional investments or anything like that. Because say you go for a job interview, people ask you what experience you have for that particular role. But in an investment scenario, someone's willing to trust you with multi-million pounds to build a multi-million pound company, although you've never built a multi-million pound company. So what are they looking at? They're looking at your ability to say, I know this is all I've got today, but this is where I'm going to go. And that story, the ability to tell that story, is a fundamental trait that we see in successful entrepreneurs. Now, the next thing we see is self-awareness. Now, this isn't twofold. One is knowing what you're good at, right? But more importantly is knowing what you're not good at. But not to a point where you discreetly, you keep it to yourself, because, a lot of people don't like talking about their weaknesses openly because, they get defensive. They feel it shows a weaker side of them by showing what their flaws are. But actually, by being open about your weaknesses, you're able to attract people who can complement and fill that void. And as an entrepreneur, you're not going to do this on your own. You're not going to build a multi-million pound company on your own. So you need to be aware of what it is that you're not able to do. And surround yourself with the right kind of people who can help you do that. Now, out of having run businesses for the last decade, single-handedly, the hardest thing about running a business is the people in the business, right? Motivating human beings is very difficult, right? Each person has their own issues. If you look at my team, someone's getting married, the other person's trying to buy a house. My one-to-one catch-up, most of my time is therapy, right? Very rarely are we talking about targets or anything like that. But it's to build this right kind of people around you and be able to motivate them to bring out their best. That is a trait where it's fundamental for you to be able to grow a big organization. On that, I think single-handedly the thing I look for when we're looking at investments is someone's ability to learn and learn quickly. Like I said, when you're starting out, you don't know most of this stuff, right? And the investors know you don't know most of this stuff. But they're taking a chance because they think you can figure this out, right? But not only figure this out, they'll figure this out before the money runs out, and that's the most important thing. So I always look at this as an analogy where you've jumped out of a plane, you're trying to put together your parachute before you hit the ground. Once you start getting close to the ground, it means you're running out of money. Then you raise a bit more money and you get yourself a bit more time. And that's what you're doing. Because if you've never built a multi-million pound company, you're constantly figuring it out. So it's your ability to learn, and not just learn your job. And when I say your job entails many other people's jobs. Like one of my favorite films is Aaron Sorkin's Steve Jobs, directed by Danny Boyle. And one of my favorite lines in that is where Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs have an argument, and Steve Jobs goes to hit. Well, Steve Wozniak is arguing because he says, why do you get all the fame when I'm this smart guy who came up with the technology? And Steve Jobs says to him, it's because you play the instrument and I play the orchestra. And that couldn't have summed up what a CEO does more beautifully. Because you need to know about all of the instruments in that orchestra. But you don't need to play it as well as they do, because that's why you're hiring them. But you need to know about each one of those jobs. It's difficult for you to hire a developer without knowing what you're looking for. It's difficult for you to hire someone in digital marketing without you having a feel for what that job requires and what the challenges are. And so your ability to learn these things and learn them quickly, whether that's from reading or listening to stuff or meeting people, is fundamental. One of the other key things we look for is if this person knows why they're doing this. And I bring this up because it's a long game running a business, right? Like my last business I ran for 4 years before we licensed the technology to one of the largest reservation platforms in Europe. But 4 years, and a lot changes. Your team changes, your idea changes. So at that time you get lost along the way. And at that time it's easy for you to start doubting, why the hell am I doing this? Especially at that time, I was early 20s, a lot of my mates had finished their grad scheme and they'd got good jobs, they're getting paid well, they're going on holidays, we're sitting around having a drink, and I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? I could be going on the same holidays as these guys. And so once you start forgetting why you're doing it, it's important for you to know why, right? And so your story might be different, your reason for doing it might be different, but it's important you know that. For me, I like the idea of where I get a kick from is adding value. Either doing stuff that adds value to myself or doing stuff that adds value to the people around me. Now, as an individual, there are only so many people I can add value to. Whereas the business is a vehicle, a systematic way for me to add value to more people than I ever could as an individual. And that's my reason. And whenever I get lost along the way, I'm like, why am I doing this? Doing this for this. And why am I doing this particular business? And I remind myself of that. And that was one of the reasons why I chose How Now as the next business when we were doing it, because my last business was in the hospitality sector. As amazing as it was, I was like, do I really want to be known as the guy who helped people find a good restaurant? And that was difficult for me to answer that why. And so I needed something I could believe in a lot more, because I knew it was going to be difficult because we were going for something a lot bigger now. Now, these are some of the key traits we look for an entrepreneur, and hopefully you guys can have a think about how many of those characteristics that you have as an entrepreneur, and these are things that we've learned from the deals that we've done. But hopefully that was useful. But it's great to see a room full of ambitious animals like this. If I was slurring during any of that, it's jet lag, nothing else. I only learned it yesterday. But yeah, thanks for having me, and I'll pass it on to Jessica to host the panel.
Thank you, Nelson. Amazing keynote. I don't know about the rest of you, but my mind is certainly buzzing with questions. I'm sure the rest of yours are as well. So on that note, we are going to jump right into our panel discussion. Nelson is one of our panelists. We're also joined by 4 other amazing individuals. So if we could have all of you up here, we have Manoj Subendran, Susanna Sabratnam, Noel Kittredge, and Delani, sorry, I forgot her last name. Let's give him a hand, guys. Okay, how's everybody doing? Excellent. So I'm very excited about this panel discussion with you guys, and just really having the opportunity to pick your brains about the challenges and the hurdles and the joys that come with taking on that new adventure and going into a new area, some unfamiliar, uncharted territory. And really just hearing your experiences with it, and also following the theme of today, how you were able to leverage and really productively use your networks and your connections, both within our community and beyond our community, to get to where you are, and how they continue to play a role today. So really looking forward to getting into that conversation with you guys. Before I tell you who they are, I'm going to tell you who I am, in case you're wondering. So my name is Jessica J. Subasan. I was a law student at Osgoode Hall. I just finished up, and right now I am studying for the bar. I'm taking it easy before articling in August, and I'm doing cool, interesting things like this, where I get to be in a room full of like-minded, keen, and curious people, and really just learn from each other and support each other, which I think is the whole point of this whole series of talks, which is really to create a collaborative and a supporting space for us to learn from one another. So that's me, and I'm going to tell you who these people are. So we already got to know Nelson a little bit. We're going to get to know him a little bit more throughout this panel. I'm going to start with Manoj of Green Frog Construction. So after finishing school and in response to a lack of opportunities in his own industry, Manoj, who goes by MJ, decided to go out and create his own opportunities. He started Green Frog Construction in 2012, a construction, renovation, and capital expenditure company based in Woodbridge. And since then, the company has seen exponential growth, going from projects with a budget of $50,000 to quickly securing contracts up to $1.5 million. Green Frog's impressive client roster now includes the likes of Scotiabank, Popeyes, Louisiana Chicken, and The Brick. Next up, I'll introduce you to Susanna, who I'm sure some of you may already know. She might be something of a household name by now. But since participating in Color Tamil's widely followed reality show, Ingham with actor Arya, who I'm sure you all also know, Susanna has become something of a household name. Leaving her role as a radiation therapist for the past 10 years at Sunnybrook Health Sciences, Susanna's passion for creative outlets led her to make the bold decision to cross the globe, go to India, and take part in this 4-month reality series, being the only competitor from the West. Add on to that the fact that Susanna was the only competitor to also be divorced and to have a child. I think it's safe to say that she had hurdles to overcome with this competition, and she did overcome them. She made it all the way to the grand finale, which, despite the epic plot twist, which left viewers shocked, the opportunity nonetheless provided Susanna with a platform to jump off of and explore a number of other opportunities that engage her interest in fashion and natural and environmentally friendly skincare products. So next up we have Noel Kittredge. Making his start as a software engineer, Noel Kittredge has built a career over the past 15 years in various product leadership roles with global tech giants such as Motorola, Google, and Lenovo. As if that wasn't enough, Noel merged his passion for tech with strategy and corporate finance and ventured into mergers and acquisitions at Scotia Capital. He's also an active investor with York Angels Investors and a limited partner with Google News Ventures, where he works with early-stage tech companies to develop their own visions. He did all this while he built UXplore, a client-focused software robotic automation company intent on creating value for its clients by automating tests, tasks, and workflows, and allowing clients to focus on the work that actually matters to them. And last but not least, we have Delani Rabindran, who is a Torontonian born and bred, but her love for Indian cinema led her to depart from her role as a financial analyst with the Toronto International Film Festival and apply her MBA elsewhere, namely by starting up Viewfinder Consulting in 2016, whose goal is to bring Indian cinema to the world. Prior to doing so, she represented several Indian films and secured festival successes for them. And in 2016, she made a trip to India where she worked on another film, recognizing the need to have a more global, a more vocal voice to represent Indian cinema across the world. Delani is also a well-known columnist for various media outlets in India and Canada, and she hosts the 1x2 podcast by Raga.com and serves as an international programmer for select international film festivals. So that's who they are. Before we actually get into the meat of the panel, where we really are going to pick their brain and find out how they got to the successful places they are today, I think it's important that we get to know the people behind the ventures and know them on a human level. So we're going to do a fun little lightning round. Here are the ground rules. You have max 3 seconds to respond. No response over 5 words. Pretty simple, right? And here we go. We're going to go from my right and go down. Okay, Noel. Favorite Sunday afternoon activity?
Play with my kids.
Oh, use the mic, guys.
Same question, right?
Same question, yeah.
Bike riding.
Watching TV. Going to the movies.
Fitting.
Netflix and chill.
Netflix and chill, okay, I like that one. Okay, London or Toronto?
Toronto.
Toronto.
I feel like I'm going to get hurt if I say London.
Am I going to be the only Torontonian who says I might say London? I don't, yeah? I love my city, but I don't know, London has this charm. I just like it, yeah. It's that old world meets new world. Last song you listened to on your phone or your iPod? Guys, use the mic.
Percocet?
Shape of You. I just heard it on the radio.
I'm upset, Drake.
Probably some Ilya Classic. That's what gets me in the zone. So, yeah.
Great diversity there. I like that. Okay, last one. Gun to your head. And politics aside, if they can be set aside, I'm sure Delani would have something to say about that. Rajinikanth or Kamal Haasan?
Kamal Haasan. Rajini for sure.
Yeah, okay.
Rajini.
Kamal.
I think we made an entire film about how much we love Rajinikanth. I think you know the answer to that.
Is it Kamal Haasan? Okay, well, if you didn't know them then, I think we know them now a little bit. So on that note, let's get into the meat of this panel discussion. This first question is for all of you guys. I think, you know, for a lot of people, the ventures that you guys have undertaken, the decision to leave what you were doing, and you guys were doing pretty secure things, I think, before you decided to take on these new ventures. The decision is, it can be pretty daunting, you know, starting a business or venturing into a global industry or market, or, you know, going across the globe and participating in this, this really widely followed TV series in a culture that isn't really necessarily your own, you know, being from the West. So, you know, I think what a lot of people are curious about is, when was it that you had that moment? You were like, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm sure you guys probably contemplated, thought about it a bit, but when was that moment when you said to yourself, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to take that plunge.
Sure, I'll start. I guess because when I decided to leave that quote-unquote stable livelihood here, I mean, I was working for a nonprofit, so, you know, stably low, but it was a very big jump because it was to not just give up a full-time job and start a business, it was to give up a full-time job and go across the world and potentially start a business. I like to often say that I'm an accidental entrepreneur because I didn't necessarily leave my full-time job intending to start one. It just so happened along the way, but that spark to leave the full-time and make the jump to something unknown and unstable, quote-unquote, I think it's the same kind of feeling that some people get when they just want a job change, even if it means going from one, 9 to 5 to a different one. In my case, like I think many young South Asian women, or Sri Lankan or Tamil in particular, I didn't get to, travel on my own when I was much younger. That was not something that my parents were cool with. So, it took a little while to show them, to adult, quote unquote, and to have my own career and be able to stand on my own 2 feet to say, okay, I'm just going to leave it for a little while and try out this adventure, because I kind of thought if I didn't do it now, I might never do it. And I kind of felt like I had to act on that instinct pretty quickly. Also, it worked out well that the right opportunity came along to join this particular production companies in India called Tribal Arts. So the director, Manikandan, who's had several successful films now, if people watch Tamil movies, the director of Kakumutte, Anduvangattile, and things like that. And it just so worked out. He was a friend of mine who I had been consulting on his films from afar, and he was starting up his 3rd production. I was feeling bored in my role, and it was in a way like why don't you just come here? And I'm like, well, I guess why not? It was really what struck me. And so yes, I didn't go with the intention of starting the company. I just went with the intention that it's an experience I want, and I don't know if the timing or the opportunity like this will come up again.
Yeah, so I think for me anyway, I think it's a common misconception that people think if you start a business, you're a risk taker or you're being risky. To me, when you're being employed, there are so many variables that are out of your control. Your promotion is out of your control, you could be made redundant, the company could go bust. There are so many variables that are not in your control. To me, that is risky, right? So actually, me starting a business is me being risk averse, right? It's like, I know there are all these different variables, and I would feel a lot more confident if I was in control of those variables. So for me, leaving a big company was actually me saying, I don't trust what's going to go on here. And you're a small piece in a massive vehicle. So it was more a case of being risk averse and saying, let me control these variables and start a business.
That's interesting. I never heard that perspective.
I guess my situation is a bit different. So I finished school, went to UFT, finished radiation therapy, got a job, and that was my career. I never aspired to be an actress or anything in the entertainment industry or any of that. The reason I chose, I don't know if anyone knows my journey into this show, I actually didn't apply and I was asked on Instagram. So for me, having been, I was literally no one, I was just a, someone who was posting every now and then when you had time. Getting this opportunity for me felt surreal. It almost felt like, okay, this isn't, it was sort of a calling. And I'm more of a person that everything happens for a reason. For whatever reason, I wasn't looking like, oh my God, I'm in love with Arya. I watch movies like I watch every other actor's movies. I'm not a diehard fan to that extent. I was more looking at the perspective from that. There's some reason, for some reason, this opportunity came to me and I should take it. And that's all that I went with. I'm not an extrovert, I'm not an attention seeker, any of that. So with that in mind, obviously I had to make other decisions because it's something that I had to be able to be away from my work for a few months and my son had to be okay. So I had to make big decisions. Obviously those all had to be taken care of, but the thought process that went in was just, I kind of just went with the flow because the opportunity came to me and I truly don't regret it.
Yeah, and for me in particular, after finishing school, I had a very hard time looking for jobs because every job that I went to required at least 5-10 years experience. And then I was kind of stuck in a job where I didn't like. I was just there working long hours. So I just want to make an opportunity for myself. And I came across a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm pretty sure people have read the book. It's a great book. And along with another book called Mastery of Love as well. So those books add these two components that inspired me to add my own venture. And just the same day when I finished the book, I went out there, opened my business, and just started there and then, right? Sometimes just take a risk, just go for it and see what happens.
For me, I think it's just my personality. Like I get bored fairly easily. So yeah, I had, I would say, pretty set lifestyle that my parents are proud of and so on, right? Had a good job and house and all that stuff that, you kind of grow up aspiring to have, I guess. But I think at some point, you kind of realize that what truly is success, right? And I think, to me, I would say that's one of the biggest turning points because I think majority of the people grow up aspiring to do things or be someone that the society dictates as, what that means to be successful, right? But then reality is, I think Nelson touched on this as well, like, what does it mean for you? So for me, like, it went back to, again, how can I do something that's more impactful? So whatever I did, I was really never satisfied and truly felt like I was making enough of an impact. So that sort of led me down the path of, okay, let's kind of get uncomfortable, go down this path and see if I can make an impact.
Very cool, very cool. Manoj, one of the things you mentioned is, having to compete against people who have, 5-10 years experience under their belts, which is definitely an issue in construction, but I think that's just an issue across any type of industry, right? You're having to compete against people who have already established and carved out a space for themselves. So that's what I want to address this next question with, particularly Noel, Manoj, and Susanna. I think in your various respects, you've all had to come in sort of as the other. In Noel, in your case, you've been able to occupy, really prominent leadership roles with global tech companies that we haven't really seen Tamil professionals occupying before. And Manoj, in your case, construction, I don't really know any Tamil professionals in construction aside from you. And that might relate to, certain notions in the community about, manual labor, the value of manual labor. But you're, to a certain extent, you're sort of a pioneer in that extent. And Susanna, obviously, your otherness comes from, through your role on the series as someone from the West, someone, having the stigmas, things that are considered stigmas in Indian society, and not just Indian society, our community here as well, of, being divorced, of having a child, and going across the globe to an unfamiliar culture and excelling at it. So my question is, how did you guys how was the experience of overcoming that otherness, or confronting it head on, or just being able to carve out that space for yourselves, and establish your competence at what you do, and instill confidence in your peers and your colleagues and your clients and your competitors?
I guess for me, like, I've always just done what I feel is right. Like, I don't try to go by the book, like, rules or please anyone. I think we spend a lot of time as individuals trying to please either our family or society or community, and it's a huge problem, especially as women in our community, for sure. So going there, I mean, when I got the opportunity, I didn't think, oh, should I go, should I not go, what would they think, I just thought, why not, and I went. And I didn't realize, and this is the biggest thing that I've realized, is how much of an inspiration I was for women, and that to me is the best part. Because I was just being myself. Like, I literally just kind of went with the flow, did whatever that, task was, and if I made it that far, whatever reason was it happened, that's great. But I was just literally being myself. But I became so inspirational for so many other women, and to me that is what's more, like, I think that's the start. I think we have a long way to go. Like, I think being a woman is hard in itself, and then a Tamil woman, let's be real, we're not there yet, right? And there's a lot of judgments, especially if you're divorced. It exists. As much as we don't want to talk about it, it exists. It doesn't bother me. And so I think I kind of resonated with a lot of other females that are in that situation. So how did I deal with it? I don't think I had an issue. I was just being myself, really, yeah.
Yeah, there's a proverb that says, fall down 7 times, get up 8. It's a Japanese proverb, right? I follow that. Just keep persevering, right? So for me, just keep trying. I don't like taking no for an answer. As simple as that.
So I think part of being an entrepreneur or doing something where you want to make a big impact is that being comfortable with being uncomfortable, if that makes sense. Because ultimately, one of the biggest thing I learned while I was at Google is that whatever they do today, they make tons of money, right? But they never consider it as their business. Like, Google looks at the money they make as cash flow to fund the future. So I worked at Motorola, right? Once it was a huge tech giant, and today it's almost non-existent. So again, looking at that, you kind of see that how if you don't find a way to sort of reinvent yourself, push yourself into uncomfortable territory, like, you will no longer be in existence, right? So I think it's one of those things that you have to embrace almost, right? And if you are not in an uncomfortable situation, uncharted territory, probably you should question whether what you're doing is worth doing, right? And then if you're doing anything meaningful and impactful, chances are you are going to be uncomfortable. So
I think there's definitely a theme developing here, with being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Both Delani and Susanna have said in response to, well, why did you take that step? Well, both of you guys just said, why not? Which I think is a great question to ask if you're really reflecting on why you can't do something. So it's definitely a theme building here. This next one I want to direct to Delani, Nelson, and Susanna, because you all have sort of ventured beyond your domestic markets and taken a global step. Delani, you've gone into a film industry, the Indian cinema industry, as someone who's otherwise pretty much through and through a Torontonian, right? So I think that's not a step a lot of people would think about taking, especially when, like we just mentioned, you had you were doing your own thing here at Toronto International Film Festival, and obviously, Susanna, the step to go across the globe and be part of this series. And Nelson, just with the companies that you've worked with and the spaces you've been able to occupy at Google, and the audience you've been able to reach, I'm wondering what was it that made you want to take that step just beyond that domestic market and venture into something more global? And also, if you guys could also just speak to the connections you were able to build by doing so, and how they play a role today for you guys.
I guess, like I said, when the opportunity came, it was based in India. So why not? So I went. I think the connection that we have, like, as a Sri Lankan, you feel like, okay, we're all Sri Lankans. But the fact is, even though they're Indians, they're Tamils, they're really connected to where, like, there's a huge connection that I didn't realize that existed. Like, I learned a lot through this experience. And they explained to me that they're really connected to us because of our fact that we're all Tamil. So through the show, I mean, I met amazing people, amazing friends, whether it's the crew, like, the whole show is composed of, like, obviously the contestants, but as well, you know, you had the production company, which is from Mumbai. Then you had the channel, all the channel coordinators who were from Chennai. And then you had, like, people from, like, you know, you got the makeup crew, you got the, you know, I don't know, there's like sewing and like cooking, like it's like a huge family of people that you meet. And today, I don't know if it's because I was there for that length of time, but I'm obviously, I don't want to say I'm famous, but you know what I mean? Like I'm identified as somebody that people connect with. And so because I was on that show, I get obviously asked, and you know, I get opportunities to come, like I'm going to London actually next week, and it's great. Like, this is something that I just chose to take a risk, and I'm getting all these other opportunities to meet more people and continue networking. Like, this is completely new for me, but it's all as a result because I took that step, and I'm just glad to see what else is, you know, out to come.
Just as a follow-up to that, Susanna, you had mentioned earlier that you are considering, you know, venturing into fashion and skincare. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Well, I mean, I've always had a creative outlet, and that's when I told my manager to convince him to let me go too. You know, I work as a radiation therapist, so that's cancer treatment. But aside from my medical background, I have a creative outlet. Like, I love fashion, I love designing, I love styling, along with like skincare and just healthy living. So this whole experience kind of just gave me that strength, or that bold move to, you know what, pursue other dreams. It doesn't have to be always, you know, a one-way road. And so now I'm being able to kind of meet other people, and this is great. Honestly, this ability for us to all connect on this space is great. I think TamilCulture, you guys are doing an amazing job, because this is like the first step to kind of go out and take those, because I'm in that sort of initiative, you know, initial stages as an entrepreneur, if you will. So for me, it's just, that's something I'm pursuing and looking into researching. But like you said, there's a lot of work that you need to kind of, you know, think about if you really want to do it. But those are my plans, yeah.
Growing up, I mean, an interest in cinema wasn't something that occurred to me post my graduate degree or anything. It was something that I was raised with, you know. So growing up, I had this obsession with films because it was all around to me, thanks to my parents and my brother. And my biggest confusion was, well, I love Indian movies the most, and India is very far away from Canada. So I guess there's no way I'm going to be able to work in this, you know. And it was something that I just gave myself a roadblock when I was younger. Also, too young to know what I really wanted to do yet. But as I got older and, you know, pursued my MBA and things like that, it's when I started to realize, well, cinema is actually pretty global. You know, we have production companies around the world creating movies across the world. And obviously, movies that are made in one country are shown in many other countries. So I started to realize, okay, maybe there's a way to get involved from here. And that's what drew me to film festivals, because they bring world cinema to a metropolitan place like here. So yes, oh, that's really different. So, you know, that I think that's what drew me to the Toronto International Film Festival, or film festivals in general, because I was interested in world cinema, and there lives a place here in Toronto that brings the world in film to you. So getting involved or making that decision to branch out of Toronto, though, really came from Toronto, or TIFF gave me that opportunity to work in South Asian films that I was admiring from afar. You know, I got the chance to work in programming and help to bring films here to Toronto, and then essentially along the way I realized, well, I really like this, but I want to be even more involved. And because the cinema I'm most, you know, passionate about, which is Indian cinema, does happen majorly in India, it really wasn't a question of does it make sense to go there? Like, to grow my career in this industry, if this is what I'm most passionate about. I realized at some point or another it was going to involve going there and making a name for myself there too. I mean, it was great. TIFF really gave me exposure to filmmakers who were coming here, and slowly my name was spreading, but to make that quantum leap and let them know, like, I'm not just critiquing your films from afar, I'd like to be involved in making them. It required that branching out.
On that note, just, with going abroad and, slowly having your name be recognized, did your networks or your connections in our community here, did that help in any way in doing that with viewfinder consulting or, establish connections in India once you made that move? Did any of those connections help?
Well, the interesting thing is when I was working at TIFF, I was saying yes to a lot of opportunities that I thought were some way adjacent or connected or could be connected to film and help get my name out there in media. So I was writing for websites. I was also accepting PR opportunities to work with Tamil filmmakers here. So Lennon Sivam, who's a Toronto filmmaker, doing PR on his early films. I also started saying yes to really random, requests, like to host the premiere of like 2 British guys who created this documentary called The Rajni Effect, and one of them is right here, and never having met him before today in person. But it was an opportunity that came up. A friend of a friend mentions you here, or a critic there recommends you. And I really didn't know where these things might lead, but I knew I was excited about them and interested to do them. And it really was just, you never know where this might go. So those connections here, I think, helped build my reputation in the South Asian community here, which gave me a stronger footing when I went to India to convince people there I had an idea about what I was doing.
Talk about global Tamil connections right here.
So I mean, it's in a similar sense to, if we make a film, we want as many people in the world to see the film as possible. In the same way, if we make a product, we want as many people in the world to use that product. Right now we've got educators in about 33 countries using our software. And these are countries mostly that I've not even been to. We've got a guy who's teaching maths in Jamaica. I've never been to Jamaica. I'm hoping I can use him as an excuse to go there. And that just as an individual to challenge the things that you think are truth. There's certain values we're like, no, it's this way. There's a lot of faith, and there's all kinds of different things there. And I think it's important for you to meet people deliberately who are going to challenge that very notion that you believe in. And whether there's going to be some kind of outcome from that, you don't know. But that's not the reason why you're doing it. You're doing it to ask yourself some bigger questions. And you will only do that if you get out of your echo chamber and speak to people who've got conflicting opinions. So I think it's a good thing to do anyway. We make it a thing within the company to make sure we go for a coffee with someone outside of our network every week, at least one coffee. And just so, obviously it helps the business because we're growing our overall network. But as individuals, they come back learning all kinds of things, and so do I.
That is the perfect segue into what I wanted to talk about next, which is branching out beyond just the Tamil community. We talked about how we can leverage our networks and our connections within our community, and they can obviously be abused. And Nelson, I think you already started to speak about that really eloquently. So I think on the flip side of that, the other concern is that while leveraging our Tamil networks and connections is a good thing, I think the flip side of the coin, the concern is that by doing so, you might be limiting yourself to just the Tamil community, just the Tamil market, and missing out on a whole broader, bigger, more profitable market segment. So Manoj, Noel, and Nelson, if you guys could just speak to that a little bit, and what your thoughts are on branching out beyond our community, and the value in doing that as well.
So I think in terms of leveraging the Tamil community, we're nowhere near at capacity. We're just getting started, right? And if you look at, and I mean, it's a great example, is the Jewish community. Is how historically victimized community have now built such a solid infrastructure. And I know a lot of Jewish entrepreneurs, and if you ask them where they got their first bit of money from, it will always be from another Jewish person. They've built a network where they are supporting talent within their community. We don't have that. And there's many reasons for why that exists, and there's a lot of negative. I don't believe in that. I think, what TC are doing in terms of bringing together the community and creating visibility, that didn't exist to a large extent. And we've also got to take into account the previous generation of entrepreneurs. They were almost lifestyle entrepreneurs. They didn't realize what they were doing was amazing. Now there's a lot of talk about startups and entrepreneurs, and it's a very sexy space to get into. But at that point, it was survival. We were doing it. So, they didn't feel the need to build a community and talk about their stories. Whereas I think it's our responsibility now to start identifying these stories. So the next person who's thinking about starting a business has got all of these people to point out. So I think we are at the very beginning. But in terms of going beyond the Tamil community, especially as an entrepreneur, I think in that sense, money is a good leveler. If you're making money, they don't care if you're white, black, or brown. I'm going to put money into something that's making money. And so I think in that sense, if you put yourself out there and step out of your comfort zone, and you're confident that this is not something that's just going to finish within the Tamil community, then I think there are people who are willing to back you.
You're down to one mic now, so.
So I think it's important to realize sort of the diaspora community and how old we are, I guess, as a group, right? So I think there was a generation that essentially escaped civil war or whatever, and they were trying to survive, and then they were all about, I want to, raise my children, right? So, and then obviously in that generation, there are still very successful entrepreneurs, and a few of them here. So, but as Nelson mentioned, I think we do not have that critical mass. So I think focusing within the Tamil community may work in some service type space or some niche type of offerings, but if you're looking broadly, if you're trying to build like the next unicorn or novel, whatever you want to call it, then obviously it's not going to happen, right? Because we are not there yet. Having said that though, the bigger problem I see is that collaboration or lack of working together, or ability to work together within the Tamil community, right? So like, you take Markham Steels, like somebody opens an Idiyappakada, there'll be like 5 right next door, right? You know what I mean? And this kind of mentality is something, again, that's been holding us back, and I'm hoping the younger generation will kind of break out of that and become more and more collaborative. There are tons of ideas, right? There's more ideas than people that could go execute them. So it's that maturity that needs to come, and that will naturally create wealth, to Nelson's point, and then that means you would pave the way for the future generations to kind of leverage the Tamil community. But as far as where we are today, like for what we do, right, we work with the tier 1 enterprises. And if I'm looking for a Tamil person to get me in, it'll be very hard to find one because they're not going to be there everywhere, right? So I think we are forced to look outside of the comfort zone, look outside of that to move forward. Having said that, there are a lot of very successful Tamil entrepreneurs that we could learn a ton from. It's like a journey, right? Like, so anyone that's ahead of me, I look up to them, try to talk to them, try to get advice from them and so on. So leverage the community from that perspective.
Yeah. To be honest, I haven't worked with our community at all. I work with Punjabis, white people, black people, but just except our community. Maybe that's why I excel the way I have. I don't know. But I approached Ara for the first time, asking him, I want to help my community, give back, and mingle among them. So that's when I approached him. I asked him, I want to make an event that we can meet these people and see what happens, right? But yeah.
I think we're on to something. So let's go a little further into that, because as Nelson mentioned, as Noel mentioned, we're not there yet as a community, despite being so large and so vast, So I think the question asked is, why aren't we there as a community? So let's address the elephant in the room. Why is it that we as a community sort of struggle with really effectively collaborating, or we're not really inclined to? Is it because that there's this, this hesitancy to do so because we don't think we'll get the initial support or encouragement that we need, or perhaps because our ventures, instead of being greeted by support, they might be greeted with reluctance or maybe outright rejection, which can obviously be discouraging. Or is it because we're just afraid of the critics? I wonder what it is particularly that sort of is holding us back from really effectively leveraging our networks as a community, and also what we can do better as a community, how we can correct this fault that I think we can all acknowledge does exist a little bit, how we can address it and grow from it. So if I could hear it from Nelson, Susanna, and Delani about that one, if you guys have anything to say, and obviously the rest of you, if you have anything to jump in on, please do.
I think it might be, I think someone who has maybe direct competitors in the business that they're doing within the Tamil community might have a very different take on this than I do. What I do doesn't necessarily have a counterpart or something like that. So I don't think that if there's a limitation to collaboration within the Tamil community for my business or for what I do here, it's more because my clients are outside of Toronto, and they're within the Indian Tamil community, or not even Tamil anymore. It's more South Asian in general, and it's outside of India too. It's Europe and different places. But I personally think that, and I think it's wonderful that I've got a lot of support and appreciation from the Tamil community here with regards to doing something different and venturing out and doing this. Like, I will call out right now, Shivanu at TamilCulture and Manjula, they're people who I look up to as being inspiring women within the Tamil community of business leaders, who've been celebrating what I do and are so great with appreciating me and inviting me to places like this, that I consider that support for my business and what I do, even if it's not necessarily like a direct client business transaction. It's that support and encouragement in some way too. And so in that way, I think I receive a lot of encouragement from the community here, even though my business may not necessarily directly serve it here.
I think there's an attitude of there's only one seat at the table. That needs to change. And I think you could do that with things like, I make it a point to introduce my investors to other Tamil founders, right? It's not because there's a limited pot of money. If I'm making money, they're going to give me money. In the same way, if they're making money, they're going to put money into them. But there's this attitude that, I can't make this introduction because what if they take my pot of money and they go away? And so that attitude of one seat at the table, I think, is slowly changing. But I think it's taken us a while to get to that point of change. But also the infrastructure. I think it's things like TC. I think, what TamilCulture are doing is huge and very significant in terms of not just bringing together Canadian Tamils, but over here from London because of those guys. And so I think that is starting to happen. I think we just didn't have that kind of infrastructure and network. To be honest, I actually think Canadian Tamil community is far more mature as a community than the UK-based Tamils. I think we're still quite fragmented over there compared to what I see over here in terms of careers and what you guys are doing over here. So, yeah, well done.
I think part of it is also awareness. Like, you're not really aware of the opportunities and the support groups that exist globally. Like, if this opportunity didn't come to me, there's no way in the world I would have known it existed and what to do to, obtain that. So I think, like what TamilCulture is doing, that's great. And maybe we need to create more of those to connect with other Tamils in other countries. And then you have this global networking kind of system with, with the internet and social media. Like, nothing is impossible, right? So that, along with the perception that I think we're all very competitive, we all want to succeed, but we should look at it like when we help each other, we're also getting our Tamil community, globally, we're kind of helping each other. So maybe that perception should change.
No, you said it yourself. I mean, you don't work with Tamil people, or you haven't yet. So I feel like you have things to say. Do you have anything to say?
Actually, I do. I was waiting for this, actually. I feel like we lack sense of family in our community, right? To be honest. And it's always you against me versus it should be us against them, in competition-wise, right? So we're always undercutting and asking for discounts. Like, it's a culture that we have among our community is not very healthy. right? I'm not saying everybody, I'm saying in general, like majority of the people that I do meet have that mindset. I think if you can walk away from that mindset and go towards something, okay, it's a business, you make money, I got a deal, let's do something. Versus, you're making money, give me a more discount because, you know. So it's a wrong mindset. I think if you change that, we might excel as a community. That's my take on that.
So I think for me, like, definitely there's the whole generational thing, right? So again, not to be judgmental, like, people came here to survive. And ultimately, that I think plays a huge role in, you know, how the community is. That doesn't mean going forward, the younger generation needs to be like that, right? So because the priorities were different for our parents and the older generation, we have the opportunity. I mean, here now it's just us who are going to be limiting ourselves. So that's one point I want to make. Second is, you know, this is in general though, like we need to have that give first mentality, right? When you go to a networking event, even if you look around here, if all of us make it a point to find one person to do something, right? Like one thing, and we'll probably set a record for like the Tamil community or even for many communities. So I think that's very important because again, if all of us had that attitude that, you know what, I'm going to try to help in any way I can to someone to elevate them from where they are to the next level, right? It's going to happen to you as well. So I think, you know, that's also an area where this is where the Jewish community and even certain, you know, parts of Indian communities have done well. Like, you know, you are doing enterprise software or building a startup that you're trying to raise money. As Nelson mentioned, money is already there, right? You already have 5 POCs lined up. It's like a playbook that's already, you know, laid out in front of you. You take that and you go raise the next round and off you go, right? Versus in our community, we lack the mentality.
I love that everyone on the panel had something to say about this particular question. But, you know, and I think that's why events like this, spaces like this are really important. You know, this is the start of that culture of, you know, not really productively collaborating. It's changing. It starts here. And I think just looking around at the room, hearing from you guys and all the diverse opportunities that you've taken on, it's just really testament to the fact that the Tamil community is changing, is really changing rapidly. I feel like right now is such an interesting time to be Tamil. I think it's just great. We're breaking out of those constraints of that have held us back from doing things that might not be the norm. And now more than ever, I would say we're very heterogeneous. We're not a monolith. And that's really interesting to see. So on that note, and as we close off this panel, which has been amazing, what I want to ask you guys, all of you, is how you define your Tamilness and how you express your Tamilness. What does it mean to you in what you do and how you live every day to be Tamil? What does it mean? Anybody? Go. Whenever you're ready.
Starts with speaking the language, right? Which is very important. And being able to read and write could be a bonus, but I think that we should allow our generation to like invest money to teach them about our culture, where we come from, who we are, and that will help us pass on our culture at least one generation longer, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, for me, that's a huge part as well, right? Making sure that we expose our kids and whatnot to arts and culture that expose. I mean, they may not get into it, they may not like it, you cannot force them to, right? But at the end of the day, creating the exposure is important. For me, though, like, you know, it might be a bit controversial, but I'm very proud to call myself a Canadian first, right? Because that allows me to be a Tamil, right? All the rights and all the aspirations people fight for, because of this country, that I am able to exercise it. So, to me, being a Canadian first, having the rights and the opportunity, hopefully would allow me to be in a place and have the platform to be able to do more for people back home and whatnot, right? So that's something also, you know, I constantly think about, because, you know, the World Cup is starting and I cannot stand the Italian fans, because even if Italy was playing Canada, you know Canada's going to get destroyed, they will still go cheer for Italy, right? So, you know, for me, you know, Canada first, and Tamil is enabled as part of that.
I think being a Canadian and a Sri Lankan and Tamil, it's like equivalent. You know, I've never seen myself a Canadian first, or sorry if I'm contradicting you, but like I just feel like that's just my identity. And I speak Tamil and stuff. I don't know. I know if you've watched the show, there was that. You know, it's not intuitive for me to like explain myself in all the words in Tamil, but it is important to know where you come from. And I think I learned so much about Sri Lanka, and having been there and explored, there's so much more. And that's what my goal is, to actually explore more. Because it's easy to come and be comfortable and then forget about where exactly my parents came from, right? So that's what I identify as being Tamil, knowing where your roots are.
I think I would define my Canadian Tamil identity, or how I express it, by exposing or promoting the arts and culture of our culture to international audiences. So I grew up loving Tamil film before other types of Indian, South Asian, and international cinema. So my heart will always lie with promoting those first, and that's where the majority of my clients also lie. So I define my identity, or how I express it, by helping to interest other people in it through film.
So yeah, I think we all kind of tell ourselves a story for why we do the things we do, right? And so we justify it to ourselves. It might not be the same story we all tell each other, but there's a narrative that's going, this is why I'm taking this step. And a large part of that narrative for me is driven from looking back and looking at my parents' journey and look what they set up. And so that's why sometimes I find it a bit frustrating that, you know, they essentially let go of all of their security, uprooted and moved to, whether it's Canada or the UK, to give us the security they didn't have. Now, for them, because most of their life was defined by searching for security, they think that's what we should also be doing, because that's what their life was. And I think it's up to us to say, actually, we've got that security now. So it doesn't make sense for, going from a 3-bedroom house to a 5-bedroom house is no more secure, right? And so it's up to us to explain that to them and to say, look, you've given me the security, now I'm building on that. And I think that comes from that Tamil identity. It's that story. That is the story I tell myself to say, I'm never going to take a risk as big as they have. I'm never going to uproot, and even if I did decide to move to Toronto, it's not as big a decision as what they made. And so it is that identity that drives, the fact that there needs to be more. We can do more because they did that, right? And so I think it's inherent in the decision. It is, you're Tamil because you are Tamil. That's it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I loved all those answers. I just really wanted to, what you said right there about our parents giving us that security. Not only to express our Tamilness, however, which way we please, which we now have the opportunity to do so in a country like Canada or in a country like England. It's also the security to take those risks and really explore this world, whether it's going to India or entering an uncharted industry, really. A lot of that is because of that security we've been afforded. So I think that's a perfect place to wrap up. Thank you guys so much for being on the panel. And again, another big thank you to our sponsor today, Green Frog Construction, and to our event partners, Tamil Entrepreneurship Organization and Tamil Women Rising. To our panelists, again, just thank you so much for allowing us to pick your brains. You guys can all go ahead and take your seats, with the exception of Noel, who's going to speak on behalf of Tamil Entrepreneurship Organization.
Thank you, Jessica. So I just want to say a few words. There's this group called TEO and a lot of mystery around it, and a lot of questions and so on. So I thought I would give some background and set some context and answer some questions. So a few guys who happen to be friends got together, started sharing their stories and whatnot, and then organically brought in a couple of friends, and then a bunch of us now end up meeting monthly, and then trying to share our individual stories, right? That's how it all started. Then along the way, like we're like, okay, we have enough people here now. What should we do about this group? And as you can imagine, like there's like 18 or 20 people with like 20 different ideas, and no alignment, right? So essentially, that's something we are yet to figure out. But what's clear is there's something that we could do just for the group itself and for the broader community, because we clearly see that, right? There's definitely value that others see. And to me, like, like a lot of the statements I made here, like it's with some of the challenges we had even bringing this group together. So, people, for whatever their reasons, again, I'm not going to point out people or point fingers at people, but a lot of the successful people in the Tamil community essentially sort of hide behind, don't want to come out. And it's very unfortunate because, these guys or girls who have done great things, and the next generation should learn from them. So that is essentially the biggest hurdle. Like, I don't know if it's something that is common for other organizations, but for us, just having the trust, being able to even openly talk about what we're doing, like, sharing openly, bouncing ideas off of each other. So it sounds like something that's simple, but unfortunately it wasn't. So that's sort of the journey we've been going through, and hopefully we could figure out what that value that collectively we bring to ourselves and the broader community, and do something. Having said that, though, individually, right? Like like there are a lot of folks here. I will name them so that you could go talk to them as well. Individually, there's been tons of activity that's happening, right? Because to me, this TEO thing is like some hashtag that was on Facebook, right? So what matters is, I think anyone that is doing anything serious in terms of entrepreneurship, I am pretty sure somehow someone is involved in the group, right? So I am involved, and I know there are tons of people, like I could name people. But so what I want to make it clear is no one should ever feel like, they shouldn't reach out, right? I'll be the first one to tell you, right? If any of you think I could help anyone in any way, just come to me, right? If I can't, right, I'm not saying I'm going to be able to, I will find somebody else who can. Because at the end of the day, people do that for me. And it's not because they are part of some organization. It's not because, they are doing something special. It's just simply because as an entrepreneur, like, Nelson again touched on the need for hustle. People won't find you, right? You got to go out, knock down doors, and find that, and not everyone's going to be able to help you, and not everyone can, but at the same time, that shouldn't stop you. So I think that's something I want to make it very clear, very open. Anyone that you feel could help, like, because there are a lot of tech-related entrepreneurs. Like, obviously, if you come to us and talk to us about something we had no idea about, any of it, I won't be able to help you, but at least I could try to connect you. But definitely, when it comes to tech, when it comes to like fundraising, structuring the deals, mergers and acquisition, whatever it may be, reach out to me, reach out to anyone, and then definitely there's a lot of activities. A lot of them stay behind the scene, and which we are hoping we will change. And there's a lot of investment that's made into Tamil-led entrepreneurs, like Travis Ratnam, who is not here. Knowledge Hook is also in the tech space, and we're hoping something big will come out of it. Nisha, there's like tons of startups in the Tamil community that's being supported by these guys and girls. So, I don't want, anyone to kind of, it's almost like in my mind making excuse, right? Like, if you have something, you want help, right? Let's just sit down one-on-one and, let's find a way to move forward and help each other. Okay?
Thank you, Noel. And also, we're going to hear from the wonderful Manjula Selvaraj on behalf of Tamil Women Rising. Tamil Women Rising is our other event partner for tonight, so give her a hand.
Thank you. First of all, I'll say that was a fabulous panel. I think actually while you guys were talking, I think the 10 of us here just started a company, right? You may not be aware, but we have a company now. No, I'll just say, and I thought that was a very gracious offer to have, not only to have you folks talk, but to have someone who's an entrepreneur get up and offer their services. My God, you should always take up someone like that. You never let an offer like that go. So I want to talk to you about something really specific, and Shivanu, I will stick to a minute, but my name's Manjula Selvaraja, one of my co-founders. Shamini's here, one of our other co-founders, Vinita, isn't here, but this is in the spirit of these people and the more than 1,000 members of our organization. We've been around since November. We are called Tamil Women Rising, and I will explain very quickly why this is important. So you take a man that is not of color, someone who's not racialized. Let's say they're making $1. A man of color will make 78 cents on that. These are Canadian numbers from Maclean's. A woman of color will make 56 cents on that dollar. What does that tell you? There's a gap. That means that every single person in this room has at some point encountered, will encounter, may encounter, has encountered this pay gap. You might be sitting here going, but I'm a successful entrepreneur, or I am this brilliant academic. Guess what? When you're going to a VC firm to try to get your first round of funding, or you are trying to get that thesis approved, there might be something behind the nose that you get. So one of the ways to get around that, a couple of people in here have pointed out to you, is networks. And when I say networks, I don't mean that you go to a room, you kind of point your finger, click your eye, and say, hey, you don't do that. That's terrible. What you do instead is you surround yourself with like-minded people who are successful that you may already share a connection with. This is an easy one. You're Tamil, right? And then what you do is you help each other, right? So that is what we want to do. And there are several ways that we do that. We've had like a couple of interesting things already. We have a scientist in our network who reached out to a writer to say, hey, could you for free proof the submission that I'm making to a renowned science magazine? Or one woman on a founding team of a Toronto startup who said, I'd like to pull another Tamil woman in. There's several examples of this kind. But what is really important for us as an organization is to see women really kill it in their careers. Tamil women, kill it in their careers. So please come and find us. We do a bunch of different things. Again, we're only 6 months old. Have some patience. We've had a couple of events already. We do networking events. We do workshops and things that your workplace will never train you on. How to negotiate, right? How to get media attention for the organization that you're trying to run. Things of that sort. We have a non-fiction book club so we can really read smart books together, and we have each other to lean on. So now is my list of requests for people in this room. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? Yes. Gosh, okay, help me out here. So the first thing that I need to do is for you to do things like what this gentleman just did. Offer help, don't take yet. It'll come back to you one day. That's how karma in this community works. Second thing is I want you to be a part of this organization so you can put into that pie. And I want the men in this room to have the women in their life do the same thing. Right? And the third thing that I'm hoping that Shivanu and Ara have really created is that you'll start that networking right here. Can we have that? Yes? Great. Thank you very much. Look us up across social media, Tamil Women Rising, and I'm telling you, you think we're not on the mark yet, Toronto and the world, you come back, this is where it's going to be, in this city, and it'll be a Tamil woman leading it. Thank you.